Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, sorry, we're a bit late starting. We're having some technical problems.
No problem.
Okay, now.
Right then, so I think it might be worth, Chris, maybe you introducing yourself to any residents that are logged in at the minute online. And Glenn, it's lovely to see you as well. You, if you want to give a little chat after Chris as well.
Sure.
And then anybody who is wanting to ask any questions, if every time I've said this, it's kicked me out. So if you scroll over the screen, there's a little chat box at the bottom, and you can give any questions that you've got in terms of fibromyalgia or chronic pain. If you just type them in there, and we can answer them questions as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So just to let you know, obviously this is for people with fibromyalgia and chronic pain. Obviously this is a very uncertain time for us all. So anything that you're feeling, anything that you want advice on, just ask away, and I'm sure one of us can answer that question. So yes, if we'd like to start with Chris, if you want to introduce yourself, and the team want to give a little wave as well, and just give us a little bit about what you do, and then we can head over to Glenn after as well.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, I'm Chris. My team from Hallcross are here with me. We've got Abby, who's going to give you a wave now. She actually does the NHS health checks in the community and does the training for the practices. And we've got Lynn, who's our training development manager, who works closely with me. So that's the team here. Do you all know what the NHS health check is? Glenn, particularly?
Not really, no. Fire away.
Oh. Hello? Yeah, right, okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll hand you over to Abby, who's waving again, and she will explain what the NHS health check does, because she's one that actually does it in the field. So I'll hand you over to Abby to talk to you now, okay?
No, it's fine. I'm unmuted. This might need to mute now. No. We're all in the same office, so it's got a lot of interference.
Oh, there we are.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
No, you take your picture off rather than
Mute. Oh, sorry. There we are. Right. Over to Abby.
No, I think you're muted. You just need to turn your volume off on your iPad.
turn the volume down.
If you mute your iPad.
Top of your iPad, just turn your volume down. No, but turn
It's
it
like an episode of Doctor Who.
That's it.
Right, we'll try again now.
Yeah, I think that's better. I could hear myself coming out of the iPad. So the NHS health check then is a cardiovascular health check. So we see patients out in Doncaster and Barnsley. Each patient that we see receives a individual patient leaflet where we write all of their results. We start off with the patient's height and weight, and once we've checked the height and weight, we can work out the BMI from that. That'll help to advise whether the patient needs a diabetes test or not. Once we've done the BMI, we do the blood pressure, and then we go on to do the cholesterol. So we do a cholesterol check with a finger prick of blood, and then we work through some lifestyle questions. So we talk about alcohol, smoking, exercise. We put all of these results together to work out an overall cardiovascular risk, and that tells us whether the patient's at risk of having a heart attack or a stroke. All of the patient leaflets have lots of information on about what they can do to help to improve the cardiovascular health, and there's also lots of different websites on the back for advice. Lynn's got the kit as well, where she can show us a little bit about how the NHS health check works. So I will try and mute myself now and pass on to Lynn as well.
My audio. Right, okay, so hopefully you can hear me now. Hi, it's Lynn. So when we conduct the actual NHS health checks, we have got, in the community, we've got a kit that we use, that we take out there with us. And the first thing that we do is we do a patient's blood pressure. Now, I've not got the blood pressure control with me. And we also do the patient's BMI, doing your height and your weight. as Abby said, those two indicators lead us to know whether or not we need to do a diabetes check. And if we need to do a diabetes check, we can do that with this kit here, which we do with just a finger prick of blood. Which we put on a little machine here, and then we insert a cartridge, and in 4 minutes, we can work out whether our patient is diabetic or not. At the same time as that, with the same finger prick of blood, we get with just a little lancet just into the side of the finger, just a blob of blood. We put that onto a little strip like this, onto the strip bit in the middle there, and we insert that into this little machine here, which will give us readings on cholesterol, both total cholesterol, good cholesterol, and cholesterol ratio. Once we've got all the figures, like Abby said, we have a little chat about lifestyle, smoking, alcohol, any activity, that kind of thing. We put all those together to give the cardiovascular risk over the next 10 years. And also we give the patients, every patient, advice on dementia, because anything that is cardiovascular related also has an effect on dementia. So it's good, obviously, to keep your cardiovascular system working in order to feed your oxygen to your brain and help people avoid getting vascular dementia. So that's how we actually deliver the NHS health check with patients. Now, I'm sure that Glenn will have some questions about this, but in terms of fibromyalgia, obviously we're going to be talking more about exercise to you, trying your best to maintain anything to do with aerobic exercise, managing to pace yourself, some resistance and training exercises, and relaxing. And one of the things that we do as well, we will always ask patients, particularly when we do the blood pressure, about how well they sleep. So in there we can chat to you about better sleeping habits, which as well I believe is obviously going to be crucial for anybody with either fibromyalgia or chronic pain. Okay, I'll stop my little bit there and let somebody else come in. I don't know if Emma wants to come back. I'll just.
Hello, thank you. That was brilliant. So, anybody have any questions that they want to give to Hallcross? I can see we've got someone called Anne in the chat. I don't know if you want to give any questions or thoughts. You can type them in the box. No, don't worry if not. It's obviously it's just open to anybody here. So, shall we head over to Glenn? So Glenn has delivered some fibromyalgia groups in Bentley and Bowlby. I can't remember which ones you've done, Glenn, I'm sorry. But I know you've definitely done Bentley. Have you done the Bowlby one as well?
Yeah, I've done one over in Bowlby and one in Bentley. First of all, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, because the reason why I've not been able to engage with Marianne is because I wasn't sure that I could get a clear internet connection. I've been having problems getting on streaming bandwidth. So I just thought I would come on today and just see if it's clear. I'm currently talking to my provider to see if we can sort of strengthen the bandwidth and sort of improve the service so that I can deliver more effectively. But is there much of a time delay at the moment?
No, you're pretty clear. I think you've got the clearest picture out of everyone, to be honest. But I know everyone has been struggling with the internet and the connection.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that we need to look out for.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I mean, really, I'm very, very interested in finding out, first of all, what the patient protocol is for you guys, how much engagement you've got with them, what process they actually go through before I'm able to deliver some of my stuff. I mean, some of my stuff is a little bit out there, and it's really interesting for me to know what you guys are taking people through before they arrive at some sort of delivery for myself. So I'm all ears at the moment, really. I've not really got anything planned for contribution, although I've got a wealth of knowledge in numerous areas that you've been talking about with regards to sleep, meditation, diet. There's a couple of things that is being pointed out to me from your testing at the moment with regards to blood sugar and sleep. And the correlation that I do see there is if somebody is really struggling with sleep and they have high anxiety, that may give a false positive early in the morning for a blood test. And that's something for you to understand, because they may not necessarily be producing the wrong A1C over a period of time, but the night may have actually resulted in their bloodstream containing lots of sugar from cortisol as a response from the body. And I don't know whether you take that into consideration or not. I'm not sure what, that's not necessarily a question, but, but perhaps something, you know, to consider with these type of conditions.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Chris.
Oh, brilliant! I'm back on again. We're having to switch ourselves back on and off here, so that's it. Yeah, it's a very interesting point you make with the blood sugar. Basically, there are two sort of tests with. There's a blood glucose test, which is the one you're talking about. Which, when you go to your GP, they say, "Can you have a fasting blood glucose test?" Okay, and they take that first thing in the morning. And yes, that is fairly inaccurate, I have to say. So you can get inaccurate readings from that. The test that we do, the HbA1c test, is very clever. It actually takes the blood sugar over I don't know how it works because I'm not a scientist, but it takes the blood sugar over a 3-month period. So it measures your blood sugar over a longer period. So by doing the HbA1c that we do and that will be done in your practice when you have a health check, we get an accurate reading from that. And that accurate reading is as good as any reading you'll get by sending it away to a lab result. But it takes away that worry of the result being a blip in the sugar level in the way you discussed it. So we, at the very start of doing the NHS health checks, decided we wouldn't use the blood glucose level because it is so inaccurate. So we use the full HbA1c, the little kit that Lynn showed you. We use that, which gives us a totally good reading. So you don't need to worry about that. The only thing that you would have to worry about is the blood pressure, which, so your blood pressure can go up through anxiety, or even through somebody like myself or one of my colleagues saying, I'm going to do a blood pressure test now. You could think, oh my gosh, I'm a bit worried about that. And that could set your blood pressure up. In order to try to get a better accurate thing of the blood pressure, we would take a blood pressure early in the test that we do when we're talking to you. We'd then relax you, and then if we were concerned about the blood pressure level, we would take another blood pressure towards the end of the test, and we would switch arms as well. Sounds a bit bizarre, but actually your blood pressure can be different in both arms. Hopefully not that different, but we'd do it just to make sure we get an accurate reading. So that part of it can change. And the thing about doing the blood pressure, we will do usually 2 blood pressures or possibly 3 in our NHS health check. If we're concerned about it, we'll refer you back to your GP practice and they will do a further range. Ideally, they would put you on a 24-hour blood pressure monitor, which takes all those blips out of the way and then gives us a clear reading what your blood pressure is. Does that any help? You have to, I think we all, oh, have I unmuted you? I don't know, just a minute. Just a minute, I think. Try again.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can indeed. Yes, you're back up.
Great,
this
great.
Button is really brilliant, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. Carry on then. Yep.
Yeah, that I really appreciate that, Chris. That's really helpful. I think it's very important to bring that up because recently I've been reading some books about diet and nutrition, and one of the guys in there does talk about, getting a conventional blood sugar test and doing a test for yourself. And and these long-term conditions, and someone else in the family may be testing for blood sugars, they may do a test and presume by getting a false reading early in the morning that they've got some diabetic tendencies. So I think it's really important to educate people about this, and I'm really glad that you're doing the HbA1c.
Yeah,
really important. Yeah,
that is a very good point. Home testing kits have their place. And certainly if you're a diabetic, to actually do the home testing kit to see your blood sugar is level, to make sure that your metformin is actually working for you.
Yeah.
But that should never be shared across anybody, any other members of the family or anything, to get a blood sugar reading. If you need one, if you go to your practice, hopefully they won't do a glucose reading, because they're so, iffy, if you like. They would do a full HbA1c reading for you.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd like to drill down a little bit more on is the BMI, the test. Is that potentially only testing for someone that's overweight?
No, it's testing for everyone. We do a BMI for everyone that comes in for the health check. So we've got a measuring device. I haven't got it out here at the moment. We've got a measuring device to see how high you are, and then we've got a pair of scales, which are medical scales, which are constantly calibrated to make sure they're accurate. And from that information, we can work out your BMI. So we have an accurate figure of your BMI, so we can give you advice on your BMI. We can tell you if you're normal weight, which is under 25, overweight 25 to 30, or obese if you're over 30. So we can give you all that information based on really accurate, accurate measurements that we've got for you.
Yeah. No, I was just asking because I know you said that potentially that would filter into a test for diabetes. And, from my experience, there are people that have got a good natural body weight that still potentially can have blood sugar issues. So it's just, I'm trying to get some clarity and understanding, because I am doing research right across the globe, and sort of like sometimes there's lots of conflicting evidence. And so I think it's really important to have healthy discussions around this different type of evidence, and not necessarily just assuming that, because someone's overweight, that potentially filters them into the possibility of diabetes.
We don't make that assumption. We always will do the diabetes check if you are.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand so that I know.
But we'll also ask you about family history of diabetes. If your brother, or siblings got diabetes, that will almost certainly trigger off that we will do it. Or if someone's concerned, we meet in the community a lot of people who are concerned about whether they have or have not diabetes, and we will do a diabetes check for them as well. So it's really somebody. If we have someone in front of us and they're worried that they might have diabetes, we'll do a check for them and hopefully be able to say, well, look, you haven't, so that's great. So it's about perception, because there's nothing worse than a patient or a person wandering around thinking, I think I might have diabetes, and worrying about that, when in fact we can, with one finger prick of blood, we can say, well, actually, no, you haven't. So, so that thing,
In terms of fibromyalgia, Chris, do you have many people who come to yourselves with this condition, and what kind of advice would you be giving to people with chronic pain or fibromyalgia right now? I know that's quite a broad question. Just trying to see if we can gauge up any questions from the audience that we've got in at the minute.
I have to say we've had the discussion obviously before before the program was on. We're not aware we've had a huge number of people with fibromyalgia come for the NHS health checks, which is probably a concern to us anyway, because you could have fibromyalgia and then you could also have a cardiovascular problem, and we're not sure that would be picked up from your care for your condition. But if we have anybody with chronic pain, we're obviously concerned. For a start, we're doing a finger prick of blood for a start. So if they're anxious about pain from that, we can put their mind at rest. A lot of the things we talk about with the health check are sort of exercise and well-being related. So sleep, as I think Lynn mentioned, sleep is a key area. If you're not sleeping well, then you're likely to have blood pressure problems, you're likely to have cardiovascular problems. So even if you're not you know, even if you haven't got something else wrong with you, just by not sleeping well, you're likely to have some sort of problem. So we would always cover sleep. There's a very good booklet that we issued from Barnsley, by the way, not from Doncaster, unfortunately, which we give to people who have a sleep problem. And that's quite a useful resource that we give people. So we give people good advice on sleeping well. As regard pain control, it's not in our line of expertise, obviously, but looking at exercise that you can actually do and you can do safely is something we would be talking about. So if somebody says, I have got pain and they've got fibromyalgia, we would say, well, what exercise can you do? You know, because it's important to do some. It might be sitting exercises. It may be standing up more often, you know, rather than sitting down a lot. You may be able to do exercises in a chair. You may be able to do Tai Chi. You may be able to do very simple yoga, not the ones where you tie yourself up in a knot, but very simple yoga. So we would talk about all the things that we think you would be able to do. Because the important thing is, you know, especially with fibromyalgia, is that you do some exercise if that's possible. Because if you don't, unfortunately, the pain you get from that is exacerbated by the pain you get from not using the muscles. And I know it's very easy for me without having the illness to say, yeah, exercise, even though it causes you a bit of pain. Unfortunately, that is the way forward because you know, you do have to exercise, and if you don't move the muscles at all, the muscles will freeze, and every time you move them, even without fibromyalgia, the muscles will ache. So it's very, very important that we get across to people that they do exercise well. On top of that, dietary thing as well, which affects everybody. You know, eating the right sort of food, eating 5 vegetables a day, or fruit and vegetables a day, all very important, no matter what we've got wrong with us. Does that help?
Yeah, that's brilliant. So I'm just going to pass what you just said about exercise and yoga and sleep, especially, over to Glenn.
Yeah.
Glenn, have you got any key advice or anything at all that you would advise the people that have logged in today, especially during this pandemic? Is there anything that you could recommend? Or, I know, again, another broad question, but obviously none of us have been through this before, so it's hard to say, I have all the answers. But is there anything that you would recommend to anybody suffering with fibromyalgia or chronic pain right now to help them sleep, or any form of exercise?
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, that's a huge question, and actually, saying that, it can be a very, very simple question. So we are very, very complex human beings made up of numerous systems, and they do require very, very basic things. You've mentioned one, which is sleep, number 2, which is nutrition, and number 3, which is exercise. The issue we have as human beings is everybody is individual. And so when you have a look at the amounts of exercise, sleep and nutrition that people need, then we start getting into a bit of an entanglement. And when we start giving advice which is very general, it depends which area the person's got a deficit in and that needs supporting. So I would say with fibromyalgia, and I don't label these long-term conditions in any form. Basically, the way I approach it is we're looking at an imbalance of the human being. And so I'm not really interested in what's going wrong, but what we can do to fix it. And I do say fix kind of quite lightly, because if someone's been dealing with this for a long time, it can feel like there's no fix. But life is constantly moving, and we're always able to do something. And so what we've got to be really careful is, a lot of people with ailments like fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue have some serious emotional imbalances going on. Now it's the emotional imbalances which actually manifest in the body. And again, for each individual, that's very, very different. So it's out of place for me to make a recommendation based on how people are storing their emotions. That said, what you can do are numerous exercises to, first of all, sort of get more movement and more flow in the emotional intelligence of the body. And for me, it's the emotional intelligence of the body which is holding back the physical capability. And so I work with numerous different exercises that allow people to come into tune with their emotions and just where, you know, what's going on with their life right now. And sort of, you know, it's very difficult to cover all of it today, but I have numerous different resources where people can just check in with their emotions. How is the current life situation affecting their condition, and what areas of life is actually causing them to feel trapped, feel a little bit debilitated, and is not providing them with what I would call flow, you know. So life can flow with a long-term condition, but what happens is the emotions get in the way, and sometimes the life situation, you know, certain people maybe have situations which are very challenging to their emotional health, which is actually causing a restriction in their physical movement and sometimes their sleep. And then that has a knock-on effect. It has a spiraling, you know, knock-on effect. And then all the systems that I mentioned start feeding into each other and having, you know, a sort of negative effect on them.
Yeah, I follow all of that. The psychology, if you like, of the human body is hugely complex, and the more we can help an individual with that, the better. I mean, CBT works quite a lot for quite a number of people, not for everybody, admittedly, but works quite well for a lot of people to, you know, look into their problems that they've got and how they're going to control those. Because if we can get to the root, you're quite right, if we can get to the root cause of any mental problems that the person might have, then that has an unlocking effect on some of the physical problems they have. So they're all very good points. Yes, it's easier said, I think, than done in a lot of cases, but you know, the work you're obviously doing is obviously good in that way.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Sorry,
Okay.
go on. I've just shared a link in the group chat as well. The NHS have released an MS and fibromyalgia Pilates exercise video as well.
Oh, good.
But I was wondering, a question to put to the people that have logged in: are you finding it easier or harder? I'm assuming probably harder to get in any activity, any physical activity that you would normally do. So that's a question I'd like to put out there. If you want to put your answers in the comments, or if you don't want to answer that at all, that's absolutely fine. But how are you finding exercising? Again, just repeating what I've said, do you find it easier, harder? Is there anywhere that you've been logging into to do any daily exercises?
Yeah, I think one of the difficulties is with the lockdown is one of the really good things for fibromyalgia in particular, or any muscle pain thing, is swimming.
Yep.
And if you can go swimming, and I imagine quite a lot of the people who have this condition use swimming quite a lot, because it's really good exercise to, you know, to balance the body. There's no way you can do that without, you know, without the pools being open. So I think that just on its own would be very difficult. Going to the gym to do, you know, sort of low level resistance stuff, you can do some of that at home, but not all of it. And the other mental health thing we talked about, really, the camaraderie of being in a gym situation or a pool situation where you meet friends and meet people and can talk to them, all help your mental state. Certainly with fibromyalgia, you know, that is one of the key things, that you should sort of keep your equilibrium, if you like. So those areas are very difficult. I think we can all manage to do a level of exercise at home, with walking and with using various bits of garden equipment for weights, etc. We can all do that, but we can't. What we find difficult is getting that emotional part of exercising and being together. That's my opinion. I don't know if anybody else wants to come in on that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I know obviously the link that we've just shared is around fibromyalgia and MS in terms of Pilates. The NHS fitness studio now has managed to separate all their things into activities that you are able to do during lockdown. So there's a lot of indoor activities, well, I think probably 90% of them don't include any equipment at all. And they've also shared the Couch to 5K for anybody that is able, obviously with social distancing, staying 2 meters apart from anybody, to be able to go outside and walk. But we do know that some people obviously are restricted to just the house and their own private space if they've received an NHS letter. And in terms of kind of getting that connectivity and social aspect of being in a group and moving, there's a lot of live YouTube videos and Facebook live videos out there at the moment. So we've obviously got things from Joe Wicks, Sport England, and now kind of some of our local partners, so Club Doncaster, have been putting out live videos so you can interact whilst doing it. And a lot of them are really suitable to do as a family, which is really nice. We've got some of the Strictly Come Dancing are doing videos as well, so people can try and do a new skill. Obviously with fibro, it is up to you how much you feel you can do that day. Some days it might just be that getting up and downstairs and just maybe standing up, making sure you stand up for a couple of minutes every hour. That might be all you manage that day, but I would say if you do have a day where the pain is less and you feel like you may be capable of doing it, to really try and give any of those links a go. And if anybody does want them sharing, I've got plenty of those that we can share. And they're also on the Doncaster 5 Ways to Wellbeing link as well, which we'll send out.
That's brilliant, yeah. I think Glenn had a point about yoga. Glenn, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, we've got you muted. Oh, yeah. I think we're muted. Try again, Glenn. I think we had you muted for a minute.
Yeah, it's always interesting for me when the word yoga comes up, because I think it's very misunderstood, and a lot of people may feel that have got fibro or chronic fatigue, long-term conditions, that yoga is all about being flexible and putting their body into crazy positions. And I can sort of vouch for sort of stand by yoga, really, because I've been practicing it for 20 years or so, and you know, there's so many different versions, and it's been so diluted now and sort of misconstrued. But actually we all have the capacity to practice yoga just sitting doing nothing, and the immense health benefits there just on learning to breathe correctly. So we know that a lot of people with these long-term conditions have post-exercise malaise, where they do some exercise and it doesn't necessarily give them the feedback or the repercussions, not the day after, but the day after that. And so it's really important for practitioners and also people that are suffering early to be able to recognize their patterns, when their body and how their body feeds back to them the issues or the outcome from the exercise that they've done. And what I would say is for anyone that really struggles with that, that's where just yoga breathing can really enliven the body and really make them feel like they've done a workout, or really moved and sort of, you know, brought some oxygen into their system, with the same benefits actually to the cardiovascular system as doing exercise. So yoga's not to be taken lightly, but also it's really, really powerful. And you did mention something about blood pressure. And one of the things to be really, really careful with yoga and blood pressure is not all people with long-term conditions have high blood pressure. Some of them you'll find will have very, very low blood pressure. And so anti-anxiety, breath work and meditation can actually take the blood pressure down too low. So that's also something to consider. And this is what I was saying about really identifying what's sort of outstanding or what needs sort of supporting for the individual.
Yeah, all very good points. I think, yeah, the yoga can be good for everybody, and the meditation part of yoga, which you particularly mentioned, I think is really good for people. Yeah, thank you.
That's absolutely fantastic. Are there any questions that anybody may have?
If I can just add one thing.
Yeah.
So I'm currently running a men's group at the moment, and if throughout your channels you find any men that are really struggling, we have some funding to do psychological support for any guys that are really struggling currently. But I'm also open to anyone within the group of fibromyalgia, diabetes, and then are you doing the OPD group, is it?
Yes, the COPD.
COPD group, yeah. I'm very open to working directly with any of them, just as part of being, you know, connected to these groups. If anyone's got any questions, if you want to get in touch with me or ask for my details, I'm happy for anyone to Facebook me or just sort of ask any questions, because I've got loads and loads of resources on my website, and just I can potentially just listen to someone's issue or where they're struggling and kind of give them a few words and point them in the right direction.
That's amazing, Glenn. Thank you for that. That's absolutely fantastic. Well, this video is recorded and will be going out. So if anybody does get in contact, I will pass the information on, because that's fantastic, Glenn.
Right.
Are there any more questions? No? Well, thank you for everybody who's logged in today. It's been absolutely brilliant. There's going to be another one in 2 weeks' time. So up until then, we're going to obviously have a look at what we've found out today and post this video up online, so if anybody has missed it, then they can watch it back. And if there's any questions that people may have, I will send it to the people who've been speaking today. So, well, thank you ever so much, everyone, and I hope everyone keeps safe and well, and I hope everyone enjoys the sunshine from their back garden. So, well, thank you ever so much, everyone. Take care.